All right, well, crack in. I'll start.
Prime Minister, how would you describe the relationship with the United States now?
Look, I see that meeting with President Biden is a reflection of between New Zealand and the United States. Warm, friendly, shared values and shared challenges. The meeting length is probably a reflection of the issues we wanted to traverse together, but I'm greatly heartened by the nature of the conversation we had today.
And did you get a commitment from President Biden to be more present in the Pacific?
Look, actually I think you'll see that the United States themselves have been very proactive in speaking about their intention to be in the Pacific on the Pacific's terms, and that means hearing the strategic focus that many Pacific Island leaders have, where they see their challenges, where they wish to partner. And that's something that has shone through in the way the United States has been talking about partnering in the Pacific, and I saw that again reflected today. And they're not confusing.
Did Biden ask you to move closer as an ally to the Pacific? Did he ask for more of a commitment to the relationship from New Zealand?
There's no need. I think what's already established is the close working relationship that New Zealand and the United States have, that we have shared values, and really importantly, that the focus in our region is on furthering the Pacific values and the focus that Pacific Island leaders have determined for themselves. And that, I think, is really where New Zealand and the United States are in strong alignment in that regard. Let's the Pacific determine their future and work in partnership. There'll be plenty of time, guys.
Was China mentioned specifically in the discussions?
Oh, look, given that we are in an environment where our region is increasingly contested, where we have seen challenges in our region, then you would expect that would fall under a topic of conversation. But our engagement in our region has to be on our terms respectively, and not be in response to the engagement of anyone else, particularly if it's going to be consistent.
What was the nature of that conversation?
Of course, we're politicians on the environment that we're in, some of the recent things that we've observed, but most importantly, it comes down to our individual nations' choices and how we respond to that. As you well know, from New Zealand's perspective, our view is that our relationship cannot be determined by the actions of others. We have to be consistent, we have to be values-based, and we have to engage on New Zealand's terms. I'll make it clear, and then I'll
give you any indication on whether or not they're still looking at the CPTPP?
Look, we had a good conversation about the Indo-Pacific economic framework. I heard in my opening remarks that the CPTPP continues to be a significant focus for New Zealand. We also understand the domestic realities, but look, the United States has come forward with the IPEF, with the Indo-Pacific economic framework. We as a nation are very focused on making sure that we see tangible deliverables from that opportunity which has been presented, and we're going to take that. I'll let you follow up, Claire. No. You will continue to see advocate at every stage, and you will have seen me do that through this trip, through my engagement with representatives here in Capitol Hill, continuing to advocate for ultimately the CPTPP as being a way to add greater economic in our region. The United States use that opportunity, but we are looking for it to be meaningful.
Did President Biden talk to you about the events following March 15th in New Zealand? And
you will know that one of the areas of interest on both sides is, for instance, the Christchurch call to action. Our experience demonstrated our need for gun reform, but it also demonstrated what I think is an international issue around violent extremism and terrorism online. That is an area where we see absolutely a partnership that we can continue on those issues. Under the leadership of President Biden has joined the Christchurch call to action, and so the commitment I made today is that New Zealand will continue to use that call as an environment to work with tech companies and civil society to keep making progress. You can imagine that within this context that I also reflected on our experience with gun reform, but it is just that. It is our experience, and I've said all the way through to anyone who's interested in hearing it what we experienced, how we put forward that reform, some of the issues we encountered, and I'm sure likes of Australia, their experience, would equally be open to doing the same.
Prime Minister, was
Joe.
the indication though from President about sort of movements, shifts they might actually make in terms of gun reform?
It's not for me to speak on behalf of any other with or indeed was very domain. Just that personal reflection over what has happened, the devastation. The grief member who has lost a loved one to a crime like this. Those experiences are shared. And whilst we might have legislative environments, we have both seen and experienced.
Okay. So you are at the White House. How significant is it to you?
I view all of these opportunities in the same way. I'm here on behalf of New Zealand, and my job is the same, regardless of whether or not it's a meeting at the White House or whether or not it's a meeting with a counterpart in the Pacific. Always strengthen relationships in the best interest of our values. I can't let that. That's always my focus.
How would you describe your interactions with President Biden?
Yeah.
Sit down and talk face to face.
For me, this was an extension of the conversations we've already had, and we've had the opportunity to speak together on several occasions, but there's nothing quite like meeting face to face. We were due to sit down, I believe, for just under an hour, and I believe we tipped into an hour and a half, and I think that demonstration of the warmth of the relationship, the common ground, a little bit of shared Irish heritage, but ultimately that between us we have shared challenges and also opportunities. It really was really critical, for instance, those issues of online terrorism and extremism.
Did you extend an invitation for President Biden to come down and visit?
You know me, of course I did. I also invited the Vice President. You know, we're a warm, open and welcoming country, and President Biden's had the opportunity to visit us before, and I got the sense he'd love the opportunity to do it again, if able, but I often extend invitations, and today was no different.
Did he or the Vice President actually express any interest in coming down to New Zealand?
Oh, as you can imagine, I extend the invitation, I then don't interrogate afterwards. For me, the most important part was just knowing that he's always welcome, and I think he feels that.
And what did you discuss with the Vice President?
The Vice President, our time was a slightly shorter. Straight off the back of meeting with the Vice President, I was going into the meeting with the President, but in the time we had available, we very much focused on two areas which are also within her remit. Space cooperation, where many are surprised to know, but she was very aware that New Zealand, by launch, is the fourth most significant player in the space field. And she really was seeking to continue to work together as the rules of engagement in space are designed and operationalised. And the second area was around the issue of the Christchurch call to action, those issues of online terrorism and extremism. The Vice President is very focused on these issues also domestically and was keen to swap notes. And then I'll pan around a little bit.
In terms of tangible outcomes, did you raise the issue of perhaps the tariffs on steel and aluminium?
Look, yes, I did, and this is one of those issues that, of course, consistently we have raised, and I believe that will be something that will be looked into. But again, today our meeting was very much focused on not on announceables, but on actually furthering and deepening the relationship, and we've absolutely done that. And if I could just take a little pan across the goals we set for this mission, they were threefold. Firstly, we wanted to make sure that the United States knew that we were open for business and open for tourism, and we have done that. For our business and trade delegation, we wanted to open doors for them and strengthen some of their business opportunities here, and based on their feedback, we've done that too. And the third was to deepen those political engagements. So we've done what we came to do. Sure, I'll take just three. Here, and here.
President Biden has reflected on the fact that these mass shootings that we see in the U.S. don't happen in other countries, and he's kind of agreed with you. Can you just give us a sense
world leader, how do other world leaders process these kinds of magnitudes that continue to happen in the US?
All I can do is reflect on New Zealand's own experience, and it did happen to us. And sure, it may not have been a frequent occurrence, but it happened. And in the aftermath of that, the New Zealand for the progress that I think the public expects and deserves. I hold an optimistic view that whilst things have been too slow, there is an acknowledgement often that that has been the case by some, and we will continue to seek progress, particularly on the transparency of some of these issues that are thought to, in some cases, potentially contribute to radicalisation. Issues around, for instance, the use of algorithms. So we will continue to seek outcomes, deliverables, and transparency is a key part of that. So I share that view and some of those reflections. On the Pacific, I shared at least my perspective when we had an exchange of views on the Pacific currently. Very clear view on both sides that the Pacific needs to determine and is determining its own rules of engagement. And as partners, we need to make sure that we're hearing what their critical focus and areas of interest are for us to partner on. And partnership is key. It is not a donor-donee relationship, and nor should it be. And I think that's the approach that I hear from the United States. It's certainly the approach of New Zealand, regardless of who within the Pacific we're engaging with. All right, I think we'll call it a day. Thanks, everyone. Biden is a reflection of